He likes a good laugh. He said, she's a bit ugly looking. I said, there's no need to whisper, she's deaf. I'm lucky to get her, she's one of a set of twins. How do you tell the difference? I said, her brother's bald. I said, her father's a Red Indian, her mother's Scottish. What do you call her? I said, Hawkeye the New.
Did you ever try that? Skimmers is called. Although I was actually born in Belfast, I call this place home. This is Island Magee. It could only happen in Ireland. It's a peninsula. It's not an island. And this is Portmuck. And I think it's just one of the nicest places I've ever been to. You know? I came here and played as a boy. Played all sorts of games, exploring in the caves over there. And the reason why I spent so much of my childhood down here in Island Magee was because of my grandfather. He actually, during the war when Belfast was being bombed, he had found a little holiday cottage, a holiday home. We were probably the only kids living in East Belfast who had a holiday home. And every opportunity we could get off school, we'd come down here and we'd all stay in this very, very tiny cottage. It's a great spot.
I have a brother-in-law, Sherry. I was out shooting with him, he shot a hang glider. I said, what sort of a bird was that? He said, I don't know. Did you see how quickly it let go of that fella?
I'm sure you're wondering what I'm doing here. This is a game we used to play when I was a kid. It's called Keepy Up. Keep the ball up. You either kept it up with your head or your fist. And this is the barn door of Jack Hill's farm, where I spent all my boyhood. Inside there is all the potato machines were gathering up, the reapers were gathering up, and his horses stayed in there because it was all horses in those days. And right over here, which is a new building now, but my grandfather's little cottage was there. And look at that view. That's what we woke up to every morning. Beautiful view.
But it's great to be back home in Belfast, ladies and gentlemen, because it's so changed now. Some beautiful restaurants here, aren't there? Yes. We went to this restaurant last night, Richard. Beautiful, wasn't it? Half Jewish, half Japanese. It was called Sosumi. I just threw that one in, you know, as Bruce Grobbelaar used to say. Oh, do you know what I bought today? The new Bruce Grobbelaar watch. Have you seen it, ladies and gentlemen? It's got a wee hand, a big hand, and a back hand.
Well, this is about where I was actually born and brought back to here. I went to Island Magee for about 7 years and stayed there in beautiful Island Magee. And then when I was 7, I came back into the city of Belfast to number 36 Woodstock Road, which was about here. It's all changed now. Like, it's nothing quite like what it used to be. Used to be tram lines running down there and lots of horses. I never saw cars.
I come from a very tough, rough district in Belfast. As a matter of fact, I was over a couple of weeks ago visiting my mother, and I saw a Rottweiler with a stick in its mouth. And I thought, if they have to be armed...
This was a great street to be brought up when I was a kid. You know, it was a happy street. It was very mixed. There was Catholic, Protestant. There was never any bother or anything like that there. The Morgans lived there, the Quinns lived next door. I chummed with everybody.
I was beaten up going to school by the Catholics and coming home by the Protestants. The Jews got me on Saturdays.
And just over there was Mitchell's Dance Hall. I used to lie on a summer's night and just listen to the music with the windows open and all the dance music of the day. The Glenn Miller songs were coming out, and it was always the trumpet that seemed to rise above the band, you know, Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, Know My Papa, and songs like that. And I just was in a dream world. It was like actually being in some South American town, New Orleans or something like that. But it wasn't. It was the Woodstock Road. And my mum used to collect the tickets in the cloakroom. and the band would play, and if the singer didn't show up, my mum used to say, "Oh, Roy will sing for you." So I got the odd few shillings for singing there. Oh, we had some funny neighbours in our street. We had the Kenyans. Can you lend us this? Can you lend us that? My mum said, "Can you lend us 2 slices of bread, please? And would you cut them with the jammy knife?" And there was a little tiny shop there, a little grocer shop. And I used to go on a Saturday morning. My job was to go and get 2 plain loaves with big black crusts. And the woman who owned the shop, she had a bacon slicer, and she was the first woman ever. She invented, in my humble opinion, sliced bread. And she put the loaf on, and the big thing for holding the bacon with the points in it, held it against the blade, and the loaf went flying backwards and forwards like that there, and the slices were coming off like bacon, and she put them back together like a jigsaw puzzle, elastic band round it, some tissue paper round it, 2 loaves, 2 plain loaves, and a halfpenny she charged for slicing them. Anyway, we've got some kids in. We've got to do one for the kids, because I heard a story about a ginger tomcat that hijacked an aeroplane when it was 5 miles high up in the sky. The tomcat sneaked down from where it was hiding among all the suitcases, crept along underneath the passengers' feet up into the cockpit, jumped up in the back of the pilot's seat and opened its paw. It had a little gun. Stuck it to the pilot's head and said, "Take me to the Canaries." When I was about 9 or 10, a car arrived in Belfast. My fame as a boy singer had stretched the whole way down here to Isle-McGee, to the Second Presbyterian Church, which we're in now. And I was invited down to sing on Children's Day when I was about 9 or 10 years of age. And the lady who played the organ was a lovely person called Eileen Gray, and Eileen's here today. And it's really, really nice to see you again, Eileen.
Yes, it's nice to see you, Roy.
Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hand hath made. How much did you pay me?
The large sum of half a crown.
Well, Eileen,
But that was a lot of money in those days.
it was. Well, do you know what happened to it? You see, my mummy told me that the gas meter was my money box.
Yes, yeah.
And it went into the gas meter. I never saw it again. I see the stars. I hear the mighty thunder. Thy power throughout the universe displayed.
When I see you on television and all the wonderful places that you've been performing, I always say, that's the little boy that sang for me in Second Isle-McGee on a Children's Day. It was lovely.
It's just all to come back to me, you know. Then sings my soul, my Saviour God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! Some boys were really good with girls at school. What was those games we used to play? Hey, doctors and nurses. Oh, I was always the ambulance driver. Had braces on my teeth the first time I kissed a girl. My trousers fell down. Hey, over here, over here. Oh, nice one. Right, Ginger. Hit it. Nice one. Hey. Boys, what's the name of your team? Rosetta. You see that school over there? That was my school, Park Parade, and I used to play football for them. But not with equipment you've got. These are fantastic strips you've got. Can I have a look at your boots there, please? Look at them there, fantastic. David Beckham would wear them, Michael Owen would wear them. Do you know what our studs were like? That was what our studs were like. Big long nails like that. Do you want to see my boots? These boots, I scored a goal right in the qualifying of the cup, the school's cup. Have a look at them. They were my granddad's boots. He went to work every day in them boots. And one day, when he wasn't working, I borrowed his boots and I hammered them studs in there. One there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, and 4 on there, right? And I went running down, feel the weight of them there, feel the weight of them, feel them toe caps. Nobody came near me, everyone was afraid of me. And I toe pointed with that one, the winning goal, went through everybody about 100 miles an hour. And they qualified for the cup, went on to win it. So after the match, I had to get these studs out, pull them out, and take them back to my grandfather. So forevermore he complained them boots were leaking. He could never understand it. He never knew that they scored the winning goal. Adolescence, right? All them pimples and spots and boils. I was covered in them. I fell asleep in the library. I woke up, a blind man was reading my face. Well, here we are on the Lisburn Road outside. This fabulous building used to be the Majestic, and it was a haunt of mine. I used to love the cinema. I'd go and see movies 3 and 4 times over and over. And a friend of mine and I had been to the cinema, and we'd come out and we were discussing the movie right here. This was a car park in those days, and there was a few cars parked, and a couple of girls come out and started to chat to us and what have you. And we were, I was 15, he was about 16 and a half. I was about 15 and a half. And the girl said, where do you live? You know, we said, here, where do you live? And they said, Dunmurray. And they said, is this your car? And for some reason or other, we said, yes, the way you do when you're trying to impress a girl. Do you want a lift? And I could drive because I used to help the milkman. So in we jumped and away to Dunmurray, and made good contact with the girls and all, good laugh and what have you, and brought the car back again. Just our luck. The fellow who owned the car didn't like the movie. So when we came back, we were standing here with the police. As soon as we parked the car, they just walked out and arrested us. When we went up to the court, they thought it was very serious indeed. And the sentence was 12 months in Malone Training School for Boys. And when young boys or men like that are locked up, the only thing they can think about is, how do I get out of here? Anyway, the opportunity came, and I was working in the garden, and I absconded with another lad. And off we went, running in the night, scared out of our wits, cold and frightened, and we found another car, and with the keys in it, because they didn't have keys in cars in those days. Started it up and headed for Dublin, not even knowing how far the car would get on petrol. We got to Dundalk and over the border, and the car ran out of petrol, so we pushed it into a field and slept the night there. The next morning we were caught by the police and taken to a similar boys' home in Dublin, but more lenient, and a lot of younger boys. So we were sort of senior boys to them, and we had a good time there. I was there for about a month, and they thought they were going to keep us down there and to finish the rest of the 12 months down there. There was about 9 months remaining. But no, the shock of our lives was to come up because they handed us back over the border at Newry. I used to think of the Newry incident, you know, 2 16-year-old boys handed over. We stayed the night in Newry police station, and then these officers came from Malone Training School. These officers who we'd known as strict but fair, you know, became unbelievable because their jobs were on the line if boys did escape, I suppose. So to teach all the other boys a lesson, they had to pick on us, and they gave us a terrible hiding and physical hiding, fists and all sorts of things, and they're quite cruel to us. After the 2 weeks, we were to get the stick. We were badly marked, and I decided never to do anything wrong again. I was absolutely cured. The French are funny. They kiss each other with both cheeks. It happened to me outside the French embassy. It was very embarrassing. I was tying my shoelaces at the time. I blew him one back.
Have you seen a new German flag? It's a deck chair with a towel over it. All the jokes used to be about the Germans. During the war, this little Irish private went up to this commanding officer. Sir, I'd like a weekend pass. He said, not during the war unless you do something brave. He said, what do you consider brave? He said, capture a German tank. He was back in 5 minutes for one. 5 weekend passes. They brought all the generals down to meet him. How do you do it, Pat? He said, it's easy, sir. I drive up to the front. I shout, Fritz, do you want a weekend pass? He said, yes. We swap tanks.
When I was 17, that was a very good year. Well, it was. I just got out of the reform school and I was hoping to go straight back into show business and make a name for myself. But my grandfather and my Uncle Tim had different ideas. They wanted me to get a proper job. And here's where they brought me, to the famous Harland and Wolff shipyard here in Belfast. A catch boy wasn't much of a job, but it was a start. £4 a week, and you work with a team of 4 people, and a catch boy catches a boat like this. Most of them are about that size for the shell, and Mr. McKee that I worked for, he was a shell riveter. What do you call a shell riveter? That was a prize job, to be a shell riveter, and Apple Sammy was his holder on. So the rivet, I would put the rivet into the hole like that, and Sammy would put his hammer to it like that, and McKee would be on the other side going round and round, and the noise and the urgency to get it into the hole and to pair it off. And Sammy would be there shaking like mad all day long. The hardest job I've ever seen in all my life. I know coal miners working 3 or 4 feet on their bellies all the time. Well, Sammy worked always on his belly, always holding on with his head with anything. And when he came out of the shipyard, he shook. When he got his first pint, he shook, you know, and I thought, that's a job I'd never want to do, ever. I was a catch boy on the Canberra. The Canberra wasn't known as the Canberra then, it was known as 1621. That was the number of the boat, 1621. Little did I know that from being a lowly catch boy, through the programme Catchphrase, I'd get to be quite famous and go on tour around the world on the famous Canberra, and I was dead proud to tell everybody that I had worked on it. 15, I think it's 15 world cruises I did on the Canberra.
Just say what you see. Len.
Kitchen sink.
Right!
And I'm very pleased to tell anybody that was in the shipyard at that time that the Canberra was so well made by the riveters that it's now in North Pakistan and they can't get it apart. They're trying to break it up and they can't do it. It was so well made.
Just say what you see.
All hands on deck.
Especially my part, someone told me, you know, just down the left-hand side, weep it along, the keel.
There's going to be some big movies made here next year. Like, do you remember The Silence of the Lambs? Yeah. Remember? Yeah. They're making the Belfast version next year. It's called Shut Up Yous.
When I was 18, I went off to England for a while. James Young, I'd been working with him, and Jimmy had said to me, look, you've done UTV and what have you, get yourself over and give yourself a chance in England. So off I went to join the George Mitchell Singers or something like that. Just a dream that I had about getting into show business across the water. It didn't work out. I nearly starved to death. After about 6 months, my funds had all run down, so I found myself being called up in the army. I was glad to get into it. I didn't want to come home as a failure, so off I went. 8 years later, I came back to Northern Ireland. So I came to work here at this post office as a country postman. And every morning at 5 o'clock, we used to make our way round as 4 or 5 postmen, round this little entry. All the bikes would be lined up. And there's a door here, so we went in there and sorted out all our letters. And I didn't have many to do because I was a country postman. So I just come out with my little bag tied on the back there and got on the bicycle and headed off into the country. 4.5 hours of doing this on this bone shaker. Eh? I couldn't be bothered with that there, so every day I used to bring the bike down here and just leave it here. Take the bag, and my half a dozen of letters or whatever it was. And with all the money I'd saved up whenever I was away in the army doing national service and then signing on, travelling all around the world, being in active service in Borneo, saved all my pennies and bought myself this. Now, is this style or what? I was the most stylish postman in the whole country. And what's more, I could do the run now in 40 minutes.
That old prostrate problem. I overheard two fellas talking in the pub. One had a stutter. He said to his friend, what's that prostrate problem you have? He said, it's simple. I pee the way you talk.
Boy, it's 40 years since I did this. This is a 16-pound throwing hammer, the same one as they use in the Olympics. That's over a stone in weight. That's quite a lot of potatoes. And I took up this sport in the late 50s when I was in the army. Little did I know I'd become the Northern Ireland hammer throwing champion. Now, a lot of people said I was going to be an Olympic champion. I don't think I'd ever have made the weight. But I had so much fun out of doing it, and I'm going to show you if I can still throw it or not. So, even if you're sitting at home, you're not safe. Are you ready for this? Never leaves you, you know.
My father had bad blood pressure. He didn't want to get excited. He didn't want to waken up the neighbours. So he had a brilliant idea, as fathers do. He used to hit us on the head with a slipper. Every word he spoke, he struck. It went like this. How many times have I told you to be in this house at 11 o'clock at night? Hey, 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 hey. The blood pressure took over. He forgot who he was. Do you know who I am? Then he forgot who I was. Who do you think you are?
You'd never believe in a million years where I'm standing at the moment that this car park used to be the social centre of Belfast nightlife. In this particular car park here, this is where the first nightclub really was in Belfast, the talk of the town. First of all, there was a little place called the Trocadero, which was about 100-seater, but here was a 400-seater, which was owned and run by the Sharp brothers. Well, Norrie had this great idea to put a 60-foot sign on top of the building. It was a one-storey building, and it went, the talk of the town, Roy Walker welcomes you to the talk of the town, and this week's star would be underneath. People to this day, that's donkeys years ago, they'd still say, Roy, talk of the town, remember? And I'll never go a day without someone saying that to me here in Belfast.
When your mother got angry, she became a ventriloquist. Get in the house. Get up the stairs.
When the talk of the town opened, I actually bought a house, which is very unusual in them days for anyone to buy a house. Most people just rented a house, and I came here to this street with my wife and 3 children, Rochester Street, and it's a very happy wee street in those days, lovely neighbours. I'm sure it is today as well, but little did we know what was in front of us. I was working 3 jobs a day. I was in the talk of the town from 7 o'clock till about 11 at night. 5 o'clock in the morning I'd be at the market because I opened up a little fruit shop which my wife helped run with me. And during the day I drove a van for a butcher's. A great guy called Frank gave me a job, and I used the van sometimes, don't be telling anybody, to get some of the fruit from the market and bring it to the shop because I couldn't afford a van. And all of a sudden, In '69, the Trouble started. Well, I was a wee bit naive with me being in a mixed marriage situation. It wasn't the place to be over in East Belfast. I could understand. I suppose I couldn't have went to West Belfast either. The business just dropped off completely. I finished up giving it away for nothing. And the house was attacked as well as the shop was attacked. I haven't seen this house since 1969. I left here in 1969. I bought a car. I was skint. I bought a car for 45 quid. Put all my belongings in it and went for the boat as fast as I could. But then there was an awful lot of people in Belfast that suffered a lot more. I was very, very lucky. I got a good chance after 7 years over in Sunderland. I got on the TV programme, New Faces.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I've had a marvellous week. On Sunday, I watched James Hunt win the World Championship in Japan. My brother Shuey, he was in that race. He nearly won it. Only he made 25 pit stops. 1 for petrol and 24 for directions.
I think people are, you know, your success is their success, I think. They all know where I come from. And I don't forget where I came from. Somebody once said, it's not where you come from, it's where you're going. So I'm always glad to come back.
But you're looking well.
I'm at the school here now.
That's really, yes. Yeah, my Auntie May.
I'm down there.
That's right.
He was telling me about this funny job he had. He's not allowed to speak on it. It's all whispering and hand signals. 12 o'clock come, he said to the lads, "Lads, what time's the lunch break?" One of them said, 12:30 to 1. He said, "I only got married on Saturday. I was hoping to nip home for an hour." He said, "Go ahead, we'll cover up for you." He nipped home and caught the big foreman in bed with his wife. Got back to work the next morning. 12 o'clock, the lad said, "Shuey, are you going home for an hour?" He said, "No, I nearly got caught yesterday." You like to be up and about when you're on holidays. So after dinner, I went to reception. I left an early call in for next morning. Sure enough, knock on the bedroom door. A lovely little Irish porter. "Good morning, sir. Was it 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock you want to call out?" I said, "Actually, it was 8 o'clock. "What time is it now?" He said, 11:15.
There's Roy Walker.
The Queen of Asides coming up next on BBC One as Ruby Wax meets Hugh Hefner.